Hello, hello. Another week, another roundup of talking about cards and stuff I've done in Lorcana. So this is the list I sort of ended up running in the end. This has morphed over a couple days, but sort of the thought process has been there for what we want to do and what we want to achieve with the list. Right now, in my mind, I'm not thinking too heavily on hyper aggro. I know a lot of people are, but my list doesn't really reflect hyper aggro matchups too much. I'm just sorry, I'm just not that afraid of it, and I don't think I'm going to see it that much either. I'm probably going to, bite the bullet on that one and look like a silly sod when I found there's a lot of hyper aggro around. But I just don't think people, if they want to try something new, they're trying Steel Song. I don't think hyper aggro is going to make it to the main stage of bigger events because I just don't think best of two it really suits the deck very much. So I just haven't really focused in on it. But as I say, I'm happy to always eat my words on things and actually have to deal with that deck. But from there, yeah, we mainly just thought about Steel Song. Steel Song seems to be the new deck. When Green Steel was sort of dropped, or whatever happened, whatever you want to describe it, the Bucky ban, the Bucky errata. I imagined a lot of those players went to Steel Song because it's just a really strong color choice. The card Daisy was hyped. It was hyped as much as the sort of interactions that Bucky could play. You could just stomp out games with the fact that you go Daisy in one, Ursula two, and then protect Daisy for just an insane amount of lore. So yeah, I'm whenever I'm thinking about the meta, I'm thinking about that game. I also still do think about RP. I don't want to ever forget RP because I think that deck is just going to be around all the time. But I think naturally, just the way that you play uh, Blue Steel, it just beats that deck, or you can do well against it. Especially now they have no Flynn, we're not prescribed to this. I need another two drop. Otherwise, they gain an insane amount of lore. I say that it's just a lot of the RP that I play against recently. It's Cusco turn two, which I'm fine with. They're just getting their lore from that. Which, to be honest with you, I guess with the Flynn, there was that situation where if they got it and you didn't do anything, they got a lot of lore. But the majority of the time, is everyone was just tech for it. Everyone knew what they were doing, so you could just answer it. Now they have a Cusco that's going to, turn sideways and gain some lore, and then it's going to draw them a card. So actually, to be honest with you, I prefer Cusco for them. Um, if I was playing that deck, I'd say I'd prefer it. I actually quite like the look of the latest red purple lists right now, going back to sort of set three, set two standard with the Cuscos. But yeah, I'm mainly thinking about Steel Song, and the way the sort of I approached the list in the end was, you had the Captain Hook, and the idea was you played Captain Hook, you hit Daisy, then you shot it with a fire of the cannons. That just sounded horrible. I didn't really like doing that play. I never felt that was a very valuable play. My turn one was a bad turn one card. I've come down to say that Hook's pretty decent into hyper aggro, but into Steel Song it's very bad. You play it, it's likely not going to be able to do what you want it to do because it's just going to be checked by Let the Storm Rage on. So your turn one is a Hook. You don't get the card draw from the Porpsicle, so your hand's now thinned by one. Turn two, you play a Fire the Cannons, and then you maybe play another Porpsicle. So you're down two cards, and then you can draw another card of the Porpsicle. And for me, that's just bad turns. I think you haven't maximized the value that you could have got from that turn. So I approached the list a bit differently. And now when I play into hyper aggro into Steel Song, I just do Porp, Tippo, four drops. So we added in the Talas here, who has been really, really good work. I mean, a 3/3 on the board, you get Scrying, and then it can sing Zeus's. It's just really, really good. So I've gone for that route instead. It's just this thought process of I can't win versus their early game. I can't beat a Daisy and an Ursula or a Daisy and a Cinderella or whatever they're going to do and then sing songs. So I can't beat that other Smee and a Fire the Cannons and a Hook. It's just not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get to a higher ink point where I can play better cards like Cogsworth, Tinkerbell, and then later on get Mufasa and Tamaturda. And I'll talk about Mufasa in a minute because I interestingly I put it in there, but I think he'll probably be dropped soon anyway. But yeah, it's that idea that I'm just not going to win the early game. In this set, Steel Song just has a good early game. We are Blue Steel. We've never famously had a good early game. Smee sort of was able to. The great thing about Smee was it evened it out. Our turn two could be we play a good two drop. But there's just so much that they can do on turn one and turn two that's better than us. So I just try and maximize the value. So we set up the item on turn one. Turn two, we get ramp. Getting ramp is better than setting up a character that's just going to die to an Ursula, in my opinion. And then for four, we can play a Hiram or a Tala. I prefer to play the Hiram because against the Steel Song, it's impossible that they're going to have the answer for it. Not impossible, but it's going to be really hard. It's like Ursula sings Zeus, hard cast, let the storm rage on, or some other janky equivalent of that. So yeah, he's going to stick. Then we can either draw cards or we can sing a Zeus, which is why I've gone up to three Zeus count. And we can just sort of even out the board then. And then the next turn we ink and play a Cogsworth whilst they're just doing their turn 3 or 4 or whatever their turn they're doing and whatever they're doing. Setting up the Cogsworth early so we can start singing Grab Your Sword, start wheeling. Then we're only one away from a Tinkerbell. So, we're evening out the board. We are skipping a couple turns to do it because we're not pressuring so hard early on. I say that though with Blue Steel, the thing I always think is hard to teach someone how to play it or how to do it properly is it's not a very linear deck. If they Cinderella and you're on the draw and you have a Fire the Cannons, I would just take that out. And then I'm going against the lines that I've just said that were good, and that's sort of just how Blue Steel feels to me. So yeah, free Fire the Cannons in there. If we're able to just take out, if we're able to match the early game with Fire the Cannons, then that's great. Stop shift lines, stop Cinderella getting value from singing bare necessities like the Storm Rage on. I'll do that, and I might change my game plan up from there. If I do it, and I might Smee on the next turn, or I might still want to unlock that Grandma Tyler at 4. So the sort of now that we've gone away from the sort of Mickey ramp lines or the Mickey play lines that you played in Blue Steel, which was Port 2-drop Mickey or Mickey or ramp on 3. We're to the one jump ahead lines, which if you've played the one jump ahead versions, are a bit more like that. Tippo can be played on 3 with a Fire the Cannons or a Porp. I probably wouldn't do a Fire the Cannons, probably do a Porp. Um, and we can be a bit more fluid with it. We can achieve our ramp on 2 or 3, depending on what we want to do. If we want to go, play Fire the Cannons on a Cinderella, they return with something not that strong. We could return, like maybe, I don't know, we don't have anything to kill it, but some one jump that's not very strong, that's not that easy, basically. We could return with, a Smee or something like that, and then we could get our ramp on turn 3. So now we have Smee and the ramp, and it's sort of how I'm trying to describe it. It's not fluid. It's fluid. Sorry, this time around, it's not the version that you expect. And if you've played a lot of Mickey, and I've played a lot of Mickey, so I'm not saying I'm some master on this. I'm just saying I'm now approaching this deck a bit differently. Because the most important cards are at the top end of the deck. The Smee is great to sort of not stall, but he's a very powerful card to play on turn 2. But we still need to achieve ramp. We still need to achieve getting to higher ink values and just playing bigger stuff. Even getting to 6 so we can play a Tinkerbell out is just really good. Cogs off Tinkerbell, so it's just not going to die as easily to a Zeus. Even just a hard cast Grab the Swords. They might have played their hand out hoping you weren't going to do much and they're racing for the win. So you hard cast Grab Your Swords and then you return with a 6-drop Tinkerbell afterwards, or you return with a Cogsworth to set up the board, or or even a Beast, or just whatever, or maybe you've got Quills so you can quill into a Fassa or a Tamatoa, or a Hiram and a Smee. You know what I mean? You can just ramp, reset board, or stabilize, and then continue playing your bigger characters and your bigger answers, and just having more ink advantage than them evens out the game, I think. And you've got to realize as well, Daisy's just going to get some lore. Even against RP, they're just going to get some lore. That's just what's going to happen, and you've got to just live with that. They're going to get to like 11 lore or something like that. Most averagely some games before you end up stabilizing properly. You probably start stabilizing and they'll be maybe below 10, maybe at like 9 or something like that. But when you actually start to stabilize, they'll be at 11. They might even get close to threatening, and then you're going to have to close the game out by, all right, here's some bells on the board, here's a Tamatoa, here's a whatever. I'm going to answer this very quickly and just end the game. If you don't have an, if you can't end the game, I'm going to end the game quickly because I'm working with like 12 ink here. So that's sort of my opinion on it. It's this weird sort of fluid thing of trying to control the board, keep some pressure going on, achieve your ramp, which is like your primary goal, I think, in this deck. Unlocking that top end part of the deck and, throwing it out there. And those 6 characters, I mean, Kuzco for a castle, or actually, Kuzco on a castle has felt pretty rough, so I might actually looking at using Simba again, but I don't want to go into that too deeply because I don't want to think about that too deeply. But it has felt bad to be using that on a castle because it's just a bit brutal because you'll just ramp the one closer to playing Be Prepared. And yeah, that sort of sucks in my opinion. Whereas Simba wouldn't. The only difference is Simba quests for 1, and I don't like that very much. I don't like to top deck 1 questers when I'm in a dime top deck situation. And I'd be basically making myself do that if I put Kuzco in there. If I put Simba in there, sorry. And surprisingly, the Simba ability, the Kuzco ability, sorry, I keep getting confused. The Kuzco ability, invites only, I think it's called. Yeah, it is. I'm learning the ability names. If you have a Cogs down, you'd be surprised how powerful that actually is. If you've ramped up to enough when you can afford it, it's you'd be surprised. It's really useful. Everything gets two, so even your Cogsworth now has a one. Everything gets one. Sorry, that's not Cogsworth or Cusco. Cusco will get nothing. He'll just have the Cogsworth buff actually. Sorry, but all your other characters will, and your Cogsworth will get a one. So it's just really strong, to be honest with you. I really quite like it. But yeah, it's that thing of you kind of can get a lot of work done before um, RP gets to 7 ink. You know, you can start winning the board back, and then they reset it, and you should know that you hold some cards back to flood after the reset. So yeah, it's not been performing as well. RP I still think is going to be quite popular, and I don't see much RB, and I don't see much point of putting things into the inkwell. Most of the time as well, I was using it to put stuff in my inkwell because I was like, I just want a mega ramp, so I'm just going to put stuff in my inkwell. So I think Simba might actually be the better choice, just because that ramp, it really does give them an advantage, giving them one close to be prepared. Especially if I mean, you get another turn of them not having be prepared, another turn to try and wheel a be prepared out of the house hand. So yeah, it's just kind of goes against your ramp a little bit as well if you're ramping your opponent. It's just yeah, I think it's the ramp's gonna have to kill it for me. I think, and I might have to go back to Simba, but I don't know why I'm over explaining this. I'm just sort of in two halves about that. I'm still doing all right. I'm still performing as well as I thought I can, but there has been some moments where I need to get rid of the castle, or I mean the library's being played as well now in RP. I don't know if that will stick. I can't talk for that card too much. I think it's a really good card, but I don't know if it will stick in people's lists. I saw people already going back to Maleficent, but yeah, to give them ramp to remove something like that is a bit rough. I'm kind of at the end, saving Cusco only if it's a late game, so we're past 7 and they try and B prep Castle. But if that point, if they're at 11 ink and they try B prep Castle or board wipe Castle, you probably lost anyway. You shouldn't be getting that late into the game. So yeah, he's into RP. He seems very weak, I'd say. But into the other decks, fine. Some of the decks I don't really mind them playing, having a bit of ramp. There's nothing I really care about that's top end. They were going to empty their hand on their board anyway, so giving them one extra ramp's not that bad into a lot of the steel matchups. I'd say that is. Um, but yeah, into I don't know. I've tried it once or twice into the mirror, and it's kind of like you just save it for the dime, and then the dime never happens. I wouldn't really use it on a quill. In that way, the quills actually gain them quite a lot of ramp there because it's also ramp itself. So yeah, I just think destroying the item, putting it in the trash is just better. And of course, like if you're at a point where your opponent, say an RB opponent, can play Tamateur, retrieve dime, play it, and tap it, you've lost anyway, mate. You know, you're way too behind. You're not going to win that game. So yeah, I think putting something in the inkwell is maybe not as impactful as I thought it might be. But that's because I was sort of looking at, not trying to give excuses here. That came off really strong when I said that. Looking at the set 5 meta with set 4 eyes, I think has blinded me a little bit on what was going to be popular and what's not. But we're still so early on, and it's basically at that point where people are just trying lots of new decks out and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking about Cusco because I've talked about it for ages. Before we talk about Fasa, I talk about, yeah, they've just got a hefty amount of removal here because we're ignoring early game character pressure and playing characters. Besides Smee, of course, Smee is goated with the source, and when you can get to that 4, it's really nice to be able to play these cards. There's a lot of stuff right now they've put in the game where it's just really strong and it's really cheap. So Zeus fire the cannons, let it goes. Let it goes is nah, maybe not. But yeah, if you can get to a point where, especially like say like against the Clarabelle deck, the cow one, like you might just want to get rid of the shift flying Clarabelles. So you just want to ramp, get a Zeus, use a Zeus. It might feel bad value, but if you're really putting them behind from actually doing their win con, which is shift a Clarabelle on 5, yeah, I wouldn't say that's that bad. I don't think that's a terrible position to be in. It costs you 4, but if you can sing it, it's even better. So yeah, and there's just loads of little things we want to chip away at. And Steel Song, there's tons in there. In RP, there's loads in there. I like 3 fire the cannons as well because it's good maths with grab your swords. I feel grab your swords is weird right now, and I don't want to say this too loudly and put too strong a stamp of an opinion on it, but it does feel like the card got a bit power creeped out, and I know it sounds really strong to say, but like they're printing 1-drops that have 4 health, and they're good. Like they quest for 2 and they do loads of good stuff like Daisy. Grab your swords does 2 damage across the board, so it's not wiping these. It's not even wiping 1-drops now. If they go, so if they were to go Daisy, Ursula, Ariel, you have not killed anything. 3 characters that are quite cheap. to play. You know, pretty strong characters. They all do really useful things, and you haven't cleared anything from your 5 cost removal song. So it just feels bad. So fire the cannons. I like to do it for the maths, even into RP. You know, you might want to do grab your swords, Tinkerbell, you know, the sing play, and then you might be like, oh, Sisu's still alive, I'll just fire the cannons. So it's just, I just feel the card is good maths, and it deals with a lot of earlier shift lines, characters that we just don't want to see on the board. So 3 has felt fine. 4, whenever I played 4, it always felt overwhelming. You know, because we just don't want to be playing. It's for the hand economy, really. It's like if we're just like fire the cannons. Oh, my hand's really empty, and I wanted to ink stuff. Yeah, you know, it doesn't feel amazing. But yeah, 3's felt fine. 4, if I really was just getting screwed over by a shift line every game, like a Robin Hood shift or a Queen shift, but I'm not that much. It's unfortunate if they get it off, but it's not game ending if they do. Even if they shift wheel, it's not the worst thing in the world. Get 7 new cards and see what we can play with from there. So yeah, that's felt fine for me. Zeusing stuff's feel good. Even I'd say about grab your swords feels like it's being a bit power creeped out. And I was trying to say that about like ending up like a tweet somewhere saying Haaland said this stupid thing. But even Zeus, when I saw that card, 5 damage to anything, a location or a castle, a location, sorry, or a character, I thought, wow, that clears everything. And now it's like Clarabelle, the Mother Gothel that's a 4/6, Robin Hood that's been around for a while. There's just like loads of cards. I mean, Hiram as well. That just have 6 health and it just doesn't clear them. And you just like, this feels like it's a really strong, powerful card. But all I can seem to answer is a Tragic Beast with. So yeah, that's another thing for just fire the cannons. You just like, well, I need it to die, so I'll just pay the 1 extra to get it removed, or whatever like that, you know. And it just the maths adds up. You know, hit something, use Tinkerbell's ability, do 2, do 4 with fire the cannons, and you'll clear a lot of things as well. So yeah, it just feels strange that a lot of the steel. Hopefully, we get some stronger steel removal. I say that like I'm talking from this real negative spot. It's not. It's still good. Still really strong. Still really good color. But yeah, it does feel a little bit like, oh, I'm not answering things as efficiently as red, because red is just action removal, which is really good as well. Yeah, porps, everything like that. We kept the dime. I've seen a lot of the lists that don't have the dime. I really like the look of mana, and those things. I think it really opens the deck, but I'm still just keeping 2 dimes. It's just, you know, factually good closure for a lot of matchups where you just need the lore and you've like can't get it from questing, so you use the dimes. Of course, mana will be good. It opens the deck up because you don't have to put dime targets in the deck anymore, so you can open up the deck and do a lot of other things with it. But it's just sort of it's that thing of like, I don't know if I want to just venture off it when maybe it's just because I'm feeling a little bit bored of dime, or you know, I just want to try other things. And I'd like to test and try other decks, but and try other like builds. But dime just factually has been proven so many times at events and you know and play that it's just a good closer for the game. And it's forcing other people to put item destruction in their deck, which also sounds a bit of a lame excuse, but you know, I mean, maybe you don't want to play a Bender in your deck, but you have to play a Bender in your deck because blue still plays items. So I find that stuff really cool as well. But yeah, I think I'm going off track with that point, so I'm just going to stop saying that. I'm just sticking with Dime until there's really been a proven, maybe like a regional where the majority of the top cut was a non-Dime blue steel list. But besides that, I don't think I'll be swapping off. And yeah, we'll put Fassa in there. I mean, it was kind of for fun. We just, we packed one in the box we won the other day, and I was like, oh, maybe I should just try it out. That whole day we played some games. I even played some Connect games. I managed to never get it off. Maybe because I mainly ran into green steel, but it just, you know, it never felt like it came off. And all we've really done here, we hadn't even thought too much deck building wise here. So please don't take this too to heart. We're still in the early learning processes of what works with this deck. I just took a Tamatara out and put a Fassa in there and just thought, let's see what this does. Um, I'll admit I didn't miss the Tamatoa. I was sort of fine with that. I did play a lot of games hunting for another Tamatoa. Not remembering I've only got 2 in there, but that's because I'm just a bit of a silly guy, it seems. But yeah, 2 Tamatoas. I just leave it as that. It's fine. It was just there to make the room for the Fassa. But yeah, the Fassa, it was interesting. I played him for a whole day. I mean, we've only got 1 count of him in there, so we're going to start off with the fact that we're only playing 1 copy. Yeah, he felt interesting. If he's a fun card, I'm doing all those things where it's like you're trying to talk about someone you don't like, and you're saying all of the positives. We were trying to label it like it's a really good thing. So yeah, he's a fun card. I had fun playing him. Do I think he's good? There were some few positives that I hadn't thought about when I played it. So we played it for an entire day, never really got to use it once. It was always turned into ink because if you're playing against green, they can you'll welcome it, which did make me think we needed to include some peats if I was to use this card efficiently. But I'm going to get to that point at the end here. So yeah, we played it in the league today, and it came up twice. It really turned the game around versus Steel Song just by throwing it out there. To remove it is a bit more awkward. They either have to run a ton of steel removal into the card, or they're going to have to make Queen Quest, boost it, and then World's Greatest Criminal Mind it, which is a combo of having to have the Queen set up, the Shift Floodborn one, and having World's Greatest Criminal Mind in the hand, which is just a scenario they probably won't be in very often, especially if you're trying to fight back for board and stuff. They just might not be in that scenario. So, yeah, he felt good there. The returning cards to the hand is something I liked, and we had that in an RP match. I'll get that as well. So the returning cards to hand felt good. It was basically like I was in a really rough spot. He felt like a really good turn the game around. So he is quite a strong tempo card actually in that sense. And it was I didn't really care about the resetting after he quests because I don't know if I even used that. But he gives you two cards back. I mean, it's two cards from your Inkwell, but it's two card draw. He draws you two cards on play. Yeah, he's a 4/9. No one's really gonna do 9 damage, so only really even for what's it called? Red sticks, they're not going to be able to do it. It's like a big dragon on there or a dragonfire or something like that. And even still, you could be against an RP where you play it next to a Pete and they actually can't answer it. So yeah, I think he'd be really good for that as well. I keep getting to the point of adding other cards in. So yeah, he's just quite fun. It was quite good against that Steel Song. Yeah, like I say, we returned two cards to our hand. We were able to find some more removal. Turn sideways. The resetting the ink, I don't think it's that impactful. I think maybe a niche scenario where it is. And just my issue is all your cards are tapped still. So like your dime's tapped, your Hiram's tapped, your whatever's tapped. So you might do it and get to play more stuff on the board. I don't know, maybe play another Pete. That'd be quite fun actually. Um, yeah, but the resetting the ink just didn't seem that impactful, just because you need your things to be unexerted to do much with them. So yeah, that's sort of my opinion on the unexerted thing. But the two cards back to your hand was very nice. We played RP at League, which was great as well. And there was a point where it was just out of answers, out of things to do. So I knew they were going to be prep. And my other thing was play like a Bell and a Tinkerbell. I think I maybe had a Smee in hand. And I was like, it was like, yeah, sorry, it was a Bell, Tinkerbell, Smee, Fassa, and a Quill in hand. And it was, I know they got a B prep because we've just wheeled and they didn't have a B prep in that hand. And we'd also played for about 6 turns before I'd wheeled, so they were a good, 20 plus cards into their deck. So the likelihood of them having one of their B preps was very high. So it was either play um, play like the Bell, the Smee, or like the Smee and the Tinkerbell and try and force out the B prep. They were quite far ahead actually as well, and they had quite a strong board, so I didn't think that was going to work. They were like 11 law as well. So we played a Mufasa, and I think we put a Smee next to it. The two cards we got back were very good. They were a Hiram and something else. The other card was actually trash, but the Hiram was good. The Hiram allowed us to draw more, find a wheel, get into like more stuff in the deck, and just actually end up finding the win. So playing him and getting B prepared gave me a Hiram, which allowed me to unlock a win, which was great. But yeah, that's all he really did. He died straight away. So maybe playing him next to a Pete would have been a lot better. And that's where I've sort of come with the card. I think it's good, but the more I think about it, is the more I'd have to make it work for my list. So I would have to play the Petes, and have to play like a bunch of other cards as well. Not a bunch of other cards, maybe just like a bunch of Petes, and also up the count of how many Fastas I have in my deck, so that I can make sure I draw it more efficiently and play it more efficiently. Dime is good on it because it quests for 4, but I feel like because you're not getting that huge Tamatoa Dime thing, you could maybe even cut Dime and go full in on a 4x Mufasa, 4x Pete list and just win off that. So yeah, there's an interesting card. Maybe there's something there. Maybe someone who actually loves the card a bit more can do something with it, because I'm just going to keep complaining about it until someone shows me that list that really highlights how good it can be used. Yeah, but besides that, besides Blue Steel Talk, the only other thing is I've started to build on the here. Red Blue, I've started getting some cards for it to actually build it properly. Um, I just think I was sort of having a bit of a tantrum about thinking that Blue still wasn't going to be that good this set. Maybe I thought there's no point in me doing the store champ circuit and Birmingham with a deck that I don't think can win. My tune sort of changed on that recently. I thought it's not too bad, but I still think I wanted to swap. And of course, you looked at the big choices like Steel Song and RP again. I don't think I'd want to swap off the color blue. I think the color blue is probably the most powerful color in the game, giving you cards like Hiram, Tamatoa, Cogsworth, all of these cards, and even all of the dime stuff, the removal. Quill is an insane card. If you really think about it, it's insane. So I don't think I'd want to swap off blue. So the options were I looked at red blue, of course, which is the other big strong deck, and I think that's pretty good right now. The Steel Song meta, you human Sisu this card. Early on, take a Daisy Arc ramp. If they wheel, you're just going to get more answers. If not, you're just going to ramp. They won't have any clean answers for Hiram, really. Medusa and stuff like that. So strong into Steel Song. Horrible game into Hyper Aggro, I believe. I know, I've seen it. But it's not that bad. I think you can still get a win back, or maybe you just hope to dodge that at events. So I think that would be the other strong choice. I like it. I know its game plan is the same or similar to. It's not the same, sorry, because they don't have a wheel. But it's very similar to what Blue Steel was trying to achieve with a dime closer. So I feel like I'd swap to that one a bit naturally after a bit more practice with the deck. Not having the explosive draw has been the negative whenever I've tried to play it before. The other version is blue green. Looked very fun. It looked fun. I don't know. It was meta defying. It's done well at earlier champs, like earlier sort of tournaments, which is just something that happens because people don't know what they're playing against. Like if you know, Tippo double ramp whatever and throw a Clarabelle on the board, and your opponent has to read what Clarabelle does. That's one of the sort of events you're winning. But as people get more into the game, understand what the cards do and what cards are bad and what's are good, maybe it might get pushed out as just a jovial, fun deck at the time. But I did look at it. I did like the idea. You just basically ramp your hand out to get to 7, throw Clarabelle. You're guaranteed the draw. So you get that if they don't answer Clarabelle, you just got a Clarabelle set on board, so you can do some more work with that, which I just think is an amazing spot. And then you find dime, find bells. I think you play 3 or 4 bells, and then you just dime tap to win. It's probably quite linear and quite solitaire. It sounds like you don't interact with their board too much. I believe it does play the muses because you play one jump and maybe does it play how far you go? It might do. And you can just keep bouncing stuff back, disrupt, play dime, dime targets, win game. 2 drop Esther as well, I assume, is in there. I don't know why it wouldn't be. So yeah, that seemed like another great choice. But those are the other two I've sort of looked at. Of course, I play a lot of Lorcana. I do love Blue Steel. I'm really going to play Blue Steel, but I do look at other decks as well. So yeah, this is sort of list I'm at. I think I need to maybe take the Mufasa out and say that's fun, but maybe it's for a different deck. Or just go in for it a bit more. The one-off never felt overwhelming. I never really drew it at the wrong times. Unincles have felt very fine in this deck since Tippo's been around, seeing as you can start clearing out your hand as early as turn 2 if you've got like a bunch of Uninkables. Like if you draw 2 Holy Worlds, you can start turning that into cards you actually want to use by turn 2. You turn it into resource. So Tippo's just been nothing but great so far. I can see a world where I wouldn't play Tippo, which would be if discard, Lemon Lime, and maybe like a Flynn, Murphy, Greensteel was back again, but just not seeing too much of that for me to be afraid of it. But yeah, so that's my thoughts after I think 2 weeks now of set 5.